Hello, good evening, and welcome to Varsity Maine Live for the Portland Press Herald. I am Travis Lazarzik. We have a jam-packed show tonight for you, so I'll introduce my fellow panelists. From the Press Herald, we have Steve Craig, and from the Forecaster, Michael Hoffer. Guys, thanks for being here. Our guest
Welcome.
tonight is Tony Napolitano. He's been the head coach of Portland High Wrestling for 20 years. Tony, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Last year, obviously, you didn't get a season. Now that you've had some matches, and some of them have obviously, been postponed due to some more COVID issues, are you seeing rust? Are you seeing excitement? What are you seeing out of the guys, or anyone who's out there now that they're getting a chance to wrestle?
I'd see a lot of excitement actually. I thought there might be some rust actually. It's interesting you mentioned that, but I've been super impressed with the level of wrestling that I've seen so far. There are a lot of kids that worked hard. I think even maybe through last season when we didn't have a season, there's some real good wrestlers in the state right now doing some good stuff. So it's exciting out there, and I'm really happy with where things are.
Tony, I've been in your wrestling room. I've been in other wrestling rooms. I haven't been in yours in a couple of years, so maybe it's changed. But most when I think of a wrestling room, I think of a place with no windows and four tight walls. How do you run a practice, and try and keep it safe and still be effective while you're doing it?
Sure. Well, I mean, our policy at Portland High is really just follow the protocol. So right now we wrestle in matches and at practice with masks on. We're masked all the time. Our kids have been great about trying to make sure, we've all seen the pictures in the paper, with the mask around the chin, but we're trying to do a real good job of keeping those masks up and gutting it out. And they have to do it in a match. So they condition with their mask on, they wrestle with their mask on, all that. And it's really just, we think it's overcoming adversity. It's a challenge. We're going to show up every day to practice and work hard, and we're going to fight through it. So it's been a challenge, but it's been good so far.
Coach, you and Dave Elowich built a very successful program there, but not having any activity at all last year. And of course, wrestling is the only sport that didn't get to do anything last year. You guys really suffered more than anyone else. How much did that affect your program and just the state of wrestling in general, in your opinion?
Yeah, it was really hard on our program. We actually lost a lot of momentum. All the kids on our team this year have only one or no years wrestling experience, which is rare for us, especially kind of lately. So that's been a challenge. A lot of the teams that we've wrestled, I've been surprised. There have been some kids that are there that have been wrestling for a while and they're back, and they're accomplished wrestlers and stuff. But for Portland, South Portland, it's been a challenge, and we're kind of in rebuilding mode right now. But we have a nice foundation of kids that care about wrestling and show up every day. So I think we're back on the upswing.
Tony, if you could talk a little bit about the role that wrestling plays, especially at Portland, where I know you've been able to get some of the new Portland kids, the immigrant families into that. Why do you think they've come to wrestling? And, why is that important that they're involved?
Yeah, I think Portland is really unique in the diversity of our team. I think it reflects the diversity of the school. And it's amazing to me. I think kids come for different reasons, right, Steve? So we've had kids come that literally came that could speak almost no English that said, I came here because I don't have any friends and I want to meet some friends. And they found a sport that they loved, and they found friends, and they had a positive experience. We have other kids that have come from other countries. Let's say some kids from Iraq who's maybe they have family members there that wrestled. So they have a familiarity with wrestling. Then they come here and they see that opportunity. To me, it's the most amazing thing in the world to think that we have at any time 5 or 6 different languages being spoken in our wrestling room, and all of these kids coming together and building friendships and sweating together and working together, all towards a common goal. I think it's just a testament to the power of the sport of wrestling. But it's something that's probably my favorite thing over the last 20 years about coaching at Portland High.
Yeah, I mean, really, wrestling is truly international and ancient in that sense too. I mean, it's like every culture has wrestling, probably more
Yeah.
than any other sport there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It, I mean, I've always been fascinated by that. Not
Yeah.
really a question for you, Tony, but
but I the point well taken, right? Every culture has a wrestling culture or a wrestling style, right? And it
mm-hmm.
truly is a global sport. You know, we have this international wrestling exchange, and we'll take kids across overseas to Bulgaria to Eastern Europe, and they don't speak the same language. They've never met each other, but they grab a hold of each other and they start training and they start learning together. They start working together. Next thing you know, they have oh yeah, there we go. Next thing you know, they have Google Translate and they're communicating with each other and they're building relationships and staying in touch with each other. So it really is an amazing thing.
Yeah. Coach, what has the sport of wrestling done for you personally?
Oh, geez. I always say that I'm the type of person that I've gotten way more out of the sport of wrestling than I've given the sport of wrestling. You know, I didn't know about wrestling until I was a freshman in high school. And a friend of mine that I played football with said, "Hey, why don't you come out for the wrestling team?" Why not? You know, and I gave it a shot. Wrestling ended up getting me into West Point. You know, so I got recruited there. I got to wrestle Division I, got an amazing education. It brought me onto the All Army team. I got to train with the World Class Athlete Program for a whole year and work with some of the best wrestlers in the world. Brought me back to my alma mater at Portland High, you know, and working with all these kids here and all the lessons I've learned from them. And interestingly, this international wrestling exchange, I'd never been to Europe before. And wrestling brought me there and helped me meet all of these people. So when I think back, and, you know, Steve kind of hit on it, but the biggest thing that wrestling's given to me is all of these relationships and all of these friends and all of these lessons I've learned from different people. It's just been amazing.
It is a tough, grueling sport, and I'm sad to hear that you're planning this to be your last year. I think Rick DeRocher at Massabesic. Well, not I think he wants it to be his last year. We saw Steve Vermette step down at Biddeford, and certainly a few years before that, it was Kip Duvall and Matt Ricks. It's a changing of the guard. I mean, why are you deciding not to continue coaching, and is it time maybe for younger guys to step up and be that next wave of coaches?
I love having some new guys come in, and we have the type of program where anyone's welcome to come in, and we embrace that. For me personally, I think it's just one of those things where it's so much time, as you guys know how it is, but so much time and effort throughout the course of the winter to be a head coach. I'll still be involved in our international wrestling exchange, and I still want to be involved in wrestling, but I think it's appropriate for me to step back as a head coach and as kind of the head of the Portland program and pass that torch and let someone else make their mark, you know, and connect with new kids and do all that type of stuff. So it feels like the time's right. I know I'm going to miss it, but it's been so much fun, you know.
Speaking of fun, Coach, if all goes well, we're about a month away from the big regional state meets. How nice will it be to be back in that setting again and have, you know, hopefully somewhat decent crowds, but just to see some people you probably haven't seen in 2 years, you know, have championships at stake and just have the kids really have something to look forward to.
I think it's going to be amazing. I know everyone that I've talked to is really excited about it. We just found out actually that we have a venue. So Noble High School for our regional match, you know, Mount Ararat High School for states. So that now it's real. And, you know, it is a grueling sport. And for these kids to have something, hey, now we know there's a postseason and they've been working all year towards it. I think they're excited. Coaches are excited. I love just watching wrestling, so I can't wait to see the best kids in the state going at it and working towards their goals.
Tony, every high school sport, it seems like, is struggling with officials. You know, there's just a lack of them across the board. And we heard in the preseason, wrestling was in dire straits in that regard. How is this situation now? Have you guys been able to add officials, work it out with what you do have?
Yeah, I think that's still a challenge, you know, and I don't think that we have nearly enough officials, but I know for myself, I've seen a couple new officials. They've been fantastic. You know, I guess I'm not sure why there's this issue with officials, to be honest with you. I know the last year before COVID, I worked as a middle school ref because they were hurting then too. So we need more refs across the state. I know the ones they've added seem to be good. And I hope that we can entice some more people to come on board and be refs, because you can't have a match without a ref. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Steve. Jump in.
Oh, I don't know what I was going to ask now. I know. I mean, unfortunately, you mentioned before we came on the air that you've had, I think, 4 dual meets canceled, and one of the other coaches I talked to earlier this week said similar stuff. So these regional tournaments, if they happen, could be much more of a wide open affair. Do you think?
Yeah.
Because people won't have wrestled each other.
Yes. We're talking like, how do you do seeding when a lot of these kids haven't seen each other, right? Like, how do you seed the weight classes? I hope it doesn't happen, but if you catch COVID and that, with the return to play protocol and all this, that there's a fairly big window that if you get sick, you're not going to be able to compete. So I think it's going to be wide open. I think that, I hope not, but I think maybe some kids might have some tough luck, but I think it adds for some excitement. There's going to be a bunch of kids that are going to be in the mix, and everyone's got a chance to go out there and wrestle, and let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I certainly, I know in past years you could sort of check, this kid will win, this kid will win. That kid, maybe, he'll get second, I personally don't have any sense of who really the best wrestlers are even this year. So,
right. And
maybe we'll find out a little more.
Yeah, I think we will find out more. I was going to say this late in January, usually, like you said, we kind of have it locked down, but we're still trying to figure that out.
Right.
Now. Yeah.
Hey, I know that at least as of this morning, South Portland is not attending, but I feel like we want to give a little plug to the Chevrolet tournament that's going to take place on Saturday. They've renamed it the Zeb Levitt Memorial Invitational.
Yeah.
Zeb was kind of a larger than life character. Do you remember Zeb when he was at Chevrolet? Unfortunately, Zeb died in a car accident in I think it was January or December of 2020.
Yeah.
At the age of 20.
Yeah. Of course I remember Zeb. They used to come work out with us quite a bit. And just a great person, so I'm really glad they did that, tournament and put it in his name, because he was a great person. So it's hard, when wrestling, we're so close, I feel like, to a lot of people, and the Maine wrestling community is actually relatively small. And there have been some tragedies, over the last my 20 years as coaching. I can tick off a number of them, lives lost too soon. So no, I'm happy that they're doing that. We will not be there. I think actually I am going to stop by. I just see how the tournament goes and wish the Chevrolet guys luck and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. That is probably a good place to end this. Thinking of Zeb. Tony Napolitano, thanks for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Tony. I'll see you Saturday if you come by.
All right. We'll move on to Athletes of the Week, starting with Grace Ramsdell from Wells Girls Basketball. She's a senior, and she became the second girl in school history to score 1,000 career points with a 30-point game and a win over North Yarmouth Academy. Steve, I know you were doing some digging to see if you could find out who the other 1,000-point scorer at Wells is. Any luck?
Yes, thankfully, Don Abbott of the Wells girls basketball coach, very nice man and a good coach, did get back in touch with me. The other girl who scored 1,000 for Wells was Carrie Simpson, class of 2003. And Coach Abbott also added on another little interesting tidbit. Grace Ramsdell now has the distinction of being the only Wells basketball player, boy or girl, to be both 1,000-point scorer and a state champion, because Wells is the reigning Class B state champs.
That's impressive.
That's an interesting stat. That's cool.
Yeah. And
You
she had 32 the night before, last Thursday against Trape. So
yeah, and she's not done either. She's got a long way to go.
She is putting it in the hoop. Taylor Takatsu from Gardner, she scored 15 points and grabbed 21 rebounds to lead Gardner to a 53-38 win over Nokomis. I know the Tigers were shorthanded that night with some players out for COVID protocols, so good job by Taylor. Elizabeth Dietrich, Oxford Hills Girls Alpine Skiing. She finished first overall in a KBAC slalom race at Lost Valley in Auburn on Monday with a combined time of 1 minute and 9 seconds or 9.23 seconds, which is more than 3 seconds faster than the runner-up. Cullen Adams from South Portland Hockey, he scored 2 goals with 2 assists in a South Portland Freeport Wainfleet 7-1 win on Saturday against Marshwood Trape Sanford Noble. South Portland now 5-1, and I think they're about to be 6-1 because they were ahead of Cape Elizabeth. Mike's nodding, so we'll just go with that.
Impressive win, yeah.
Okay.
Mike can do this show and follow Twitter at the same time.
Multitasking.
If they could hold a 5-1 lead after 2 periods, I think they have it. So
okay. Nokomis freshman Cooper Flagg, you may have heard of him. He scored 32 points in an 80-53 points basketball win over Coney. Maddie Doherty of Cheverus, Old Orchard Beach, Wyndham Kennebunk girls hockey scored a hat trick in an 8-0 win over Falmouth. Mike, tell me about Maddie and this Cheverus OB Wyndham Kennebunk team.
Yeah, Cheverus, it seems like it's a 3-team race in the South region for girls hockey. I think at the start of the year, you had the Cape Wainfleet South Portland Co-op, maybe viewed as the team to beat because they were the reigning champs from 2 years ago. Scarborough is the only team to beat Lewiston so far, but Cheverus is really putting it all together right now. Just a nice collection of young talent, including Maddie, and that was her first career hat trick. They've got a lot of freshmen and sophomores who are contributing, and they're only getting better. So I think that South region is going to be very interesting to watch as we get into late January and go into February once their tournament starts. I think Lewiston's probably the clear favorite up north, but down south, there's really 3 teams that any of those 3 teams could come out.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more when we get to the top 5s for hockey, but certainly a tight division so far. Jay Hawks, Great New Gloucester boys basketball. He scored 22 points in Tuesday's 57-48 win over Marshwood as the Patriots improved to 6-3 with their 5th straight win. Steve, Jay is just one of a few guys here who provide some scoring depth to this Patriots team, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what impressed me as I was doing a little research here was that Gray's on a 5-game winning streak, and in their 2 previous games, they had 2 different players that scored 20 points. Nate, it's either Hebert or Abear, scored 26 against Lake Region, a good solid Class B team. And Anthony Prescott had 22 in a win against Cape Elizabeth. And with that win against Marshwood, and Jay Hawks had double figures in all 3 of those games, with that win, they're now number 1 in Class A, leapfrogging Falmouth. So enjoy it while you can.
They found out a day before
you're number 1 in the league.
They found out the day before they would be playing Marshwood because the schedule was changed around with some schools and COVID protocols. So good to just kind of pivot and get a big win.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with the team, but I do recall in the preseason talking to Coach Ryan Deshane, and they're a very veteran team. So they're just a little more equipped to deal with things like last minute go play somebody than a team without a lot of returning talent. So. And they're playing in a tough league, but hey, good for them. 5 in a row, no matter when or who you're playing. That's good.
Winslow swimmer Emma Farnham set a school record in the 100 freestyle with a time of 56.33 seconds in a meet against Morse. Ayuba Fofana, Biddeford boys basketball. Steve, did I pronounce that correctly?
Sure.
The Tigers won consecutive games against Mount Ararat and Brunswick, and Fofana, he's a 6'3" senior center. He's keyed both wins with 20 points with 4 threes and a 50-36 win over Mount Ararat. And then he had 22 points in a 64-57 win over Brunswick. Mason Desjardins had 39 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 steals to lead Forest Hills boys basketball to a 78-43 win over Richmond. Marana Cook skier Sam McKee had 2 strong runs to win a KBAC Alpine slalom race at Lost Valley with a time of 1 minute 5.65 seconds. Molly Corbett from Oxford Hills girls basketball, she made 7 3-pointers and scored a game-high 25 points, including 5 threes as Oxford Hills pulled away in the 4th quarter and a 68-57 win over Massapesic on Saturday. She also contributed 9 points in a win over Edward Little on Tuesday. And finally, Seth Huntington from Cheverus boys basketball, he scored 26 points with 6 3-pointers to spark the Stags to a 64-55 win at Deering. Mike, I'll go back to you to talk about the Cheverus boys basketball team.
Yeah, they've really come on here. They had a coaching change. Richie Ashley, who was a one-time star player for Cheverus, helped them win a state title about 25 years ago. He was a longtime girls coach, and after taking a few years off, he's come back to the boys program, really a jolt of energy. This is a fun team to watch. They've got some young talent combined with Huntington, who's a senior, and he's as sweet shooting a lefty as you want to see. I mean, he's just deadly. He hit 4 threes in the first half the other night against Deering, and then Deering came back from 17 points down. They cut it to 1. It was at Deering's gym. It looked like Chevrolet was about to topple, but Huntington got the ball up top, and all the great scorers, they want the ball in that situation. He just coolly knocked it down. The next time down the floor, he hit another 3 to pretty much clinch it. So, he's really been lighting it up so far, playing very well for a team that's fun to watch. And, Chevrolet this year, the way Class AA North is, who knows? I think they can compete with anybody. So they're going to be fun to watch here over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that is a tough league. Wow. It just doesn't seem like there's an easy win if you're in AA North.
No, and it changes up and you see surprises quite a bit too, or what we think are surprises, and then makes you reevaluate the whole thing.
Yeah, which certainly was the case when I saw Portland beat Thornton earlier this week. Thornton was riding the wave, and they're a very good team, and Portland's defense is so tough, so stingy that they, I kept wondering, is this for real? Are they really going to shut them down? And they did the whole game. So, Portland's now 5-2, and their 2 losses were, by a combined 8 points or something like that. One of which was to Edward Little. So,
okay. Let's look at the polls now. These are voted on by sports reporters from across the Maine Today media family statewide. Starting with girls basketball gang, number 1, Oxford Hills, 3 first-place votes. Then number 2, Chevrolet with 2 first-place votes. Then we go back to number 3, Gorham, 3 first-place votes, followed by Skowhegan and Brunswick. Mike, again, the girls basketball is just jumbled up at the top of Class AA.
Yeah, and a week from Saturday, Oxford Hills and Chevrolet square off for the first time of 2 meetings down here, and that's going to be that'll be a very compelling matchup. Chevrolet right now without Maddie Fitzpatrick, she's out with an injured thumb. I know they're very hopeful they're going to get her back in the next week or 2, and I think she'll be good to go by tournament time. But that's one thing that Chevrolet has to worry about that, and they've had a long COVID hiatus. They finally returned to action the other night, but they're as good as advertised, and then Oxford Hills is always there, and it seems like they always have girls that can knock down shots from all over the floor. So there they are, and then I think Gorham right now is kind of emerging as the team to beat in AA South, at least at this point, although Scarborough's really come on here in the last week or 2.
Okay. On the boys' side, number 1, South Portland stays there with 6 first-place votes. Brewer is 2 with 1 first-place vote. And then Edward Little is 3rd with a first-place vote, followed by Nokomis and Falmouth. Steve, South Portland's really established itself as the team to beat in AA South, haven't they?
Yes, very clearly. I think Thornton could still be a factor. Thornton gave him a good game, but it's really those 2 teams in AA South until somebody steps up and starts to really play at a higher level.
And it'll be interesting. Sooner or later, we're going to get a rematch in A North between Brewer and Nokomis. Nokomis' only loss so far was at Brewer, so when they get to Newport, that should be an interesting rematch.
I've only been to Nokomis once. It'd be almost worth going for a second time.
You probably haven't been to the new high school. It's been
probably not.
So no, it'll be new to you.
Yeah.
All right. Girls hockey, number 1.
I probably won't be there.
Number 1, Lewiston, with 5 first-place votes, followed by number 2, Chevrolet, Old Orchard Beach, Kennebunk, Wyndham with the first-place vote. And then we have a tie at 3rd with Cape Elizabeth, Waynfleet, South Portland, and then Scarborough. And then another tie at 5th for Edward Little, Levitt, and Poland are tied with Mount Ararat, Morse, and Lisbon. Mike, we kind of already hit on this, but it just seems like a lot of good teams beating up on each other in girls hockey right now.
Right, and I think, like I said, that's going to be a very interesting race in the South, especially. And then there's a 4th team down here in Falmouth that's probably capable of knocking off one of those top 3 as well. But yeah, really impressed with what Chevrolet is doing, and considering their youth, they're probably just going to keep getting better. So they're going to be a team not only to be reckoned with this winter, but going forward.
Okay, and finally, the boys hockey poll. Edward Little gets all first-place votes. They're number 1 with 6 first-place votes. Number 2 is Bangor. Number 3 is South Portland, Freeport, Waynfleet. Number 4, Messalonskee, coming out of B North. And number 5, Greeley, coming out of B South. Guys, it looks like Edward Little is just kind of running away and hiding from everybody in Class A right now.
Well, they've definitely been the best team. Norm Gagne has a great team, and I think he thinks they can get even better, which of course all great coaches do. But down here, that South Portland Freeport Waynfleet team, I don't think anyone's really talking about them much. They're not a traditional power, although they did get to the state semis 2 years ago. They've gone up to Lewiston and won a game. It looks like they're handling Cape Elizabeth pretty handily tonight. They're certainly going to be a factor. So keep an eye on them. And up north, it's not Lewiston necessarily now. It's Edward Little and a very good Bangor team too. When's the last time that Lewiston wasn't even in a semifinal or a regional final? That might happen this year, as crazy as it sounds.
It's been a while, yeah. All right, guys, knowing that schedules can change by the minute and things are just kind of flying by the seat of their pants because they have to be, are there any games that you're looking forward to in the coming days?
Well, you got South Portland and TA meeting again for the second time, Steve. I'm sure you're probably gonna mention that. And TA gave them a scare down in Saco. South Portland gets them at home this time. That's certainly a good one. I mentioned the Chevrolet Oxford Hills girls game, which is a week from Saturday. That'll help maybe separate which team is the team to beat in Class AA North. So those are certainly a couple games that I have my eyes on right now.
Steve, I think he poached your game, but do you have one
did,
for us?
sorry.
He did. You know what? Just to go to that game, one thing, I've only seen South Portland play once this year. I was impressed with JP Estrella in terms of sort of the things that didn't show up on the stat sheet, but he wasn't really on that night. JP being the 6'10" junior center, he wasn't really on that night with his offense either from behind the arc or his little short hook shots. But I see where he's had like a 24 and a 22 or something like that point game this twice, 2 different games this week. So I'll be curious to see in that game, whether he maybe becomes a little more forceful, whether they put him in different spots on the floor. I thought in the game I saw against Sanford that perhaps they could have put him out more at, like, say, the wing and let him try and attack the basket as opposed to, because he was getting just swallowed up down low. And he was doing a good job of passing out of that and setting up other guys. So their offense was fine. But, you want to see the big guy attack the rim and dunk it. Yeah. Right? So that's what I'll be looking to see.
Yeah. Well, when they played Falmouth, I got to see exactly that. He had 5 dunks in that game, but he actually stepped out and hit a 3. That was his first basket that night. And then it was just a dunk party from there. So, he's every bit what the hype is, and he's certainly enjoying himself. I asked him after the game, I'm like, is this overwhelming to you, all this attention you're getting and all these schools that are interested? And he's just smiled. He said, no, I love it. So that's the kind of attitude you want to see.
Yep. He certainly has a personality that matches his size. I talking to him in the preseason, it was very enjoyable to talk to him. He's a smart kid, and he does seem to enjoy it. And what he's picked up offers since the start of the high school season from BC, and I know there was another one that's now eluding me that I saw recently. So
Syracuse was looking at him that night that I saw him play. So
they had already offered him. They were the first biggie, and then Tennessee and Providence were involved, and then I know since then BC, and there was another quality Division I program. But anyway, so it is pretty exciting, right? We got some players in Maine.
It is.
Definitely.
I mean, we were
I'm being told by Don Coulter, Iowa. Yeah.
Behind the scenes, the wizard.
That's why he's the best editor in the business.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to end it right there. Reminder, you can check out all our coverage of high school sports in Maine at varsitymaine.com, forecaster.com, pressherald.com, centralmaine.com, sunjournal.com, and timesrecord.com. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy whatever games you get out to. For Steve, for Mike, for Tony, I'm Travis. Thanks for watching Varsity Maine Live.
See you, everybody.